Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 2. It's only been a day, but I'm going to go ahead and do another one of these because I felt like the first one was more like a trailer than an actual, podcast. So there's some things I wanted to talk about, and I know I get stuck on rabbit holes, and I go from one subject to another, and sometimes I forget to come back. I don't think I did that too bad this time, but I really wanted to get into Apports. So I decided this is like part 2 of episode 1, but we'll go ahead and call it episode 2. So Apports are things that, hold on one second, things that materialize out of nowhere. They're I don't know that much about them. I'd say I know more than the layman, the ordinary person knows, and that being just that they exist. So, a lot of people don't know that this is even a thing, except for a friend of mine suggested that I watch this movie called The Rite. I don't know if you've seen it. It's the one with Anthony Hopkins, and it's about a priest that he never really wanted to be a priest in the first place. He was kind of running from his home situation. And he joins the diocese, becomes a priest, and he's losing his faith. And so his professor, his advisor, his whatever, the guy that's in charge of his school. I don't want to give you the whole movie, but the thing is, he ends up job shadowing Anthony Hopkins as a exorcist. And one of the things that he sees is, as Anthony Hopkins is doing this exorcism, this girl is spitting up nails out of her mouth that just came from nowhere. You see it again later on in the film, and I know it's in other films too. And I'll admit, I've never seen the first Exorcist, or at this moment care to. But that scene really made me start thinking about apports, and that they were a phenomenon, whether real or fake. Not everybody believes they're real. But especially in the late 1800s, when occultism, late 1800s, early 1900s, when occultism was really popular, especially in, it's kind of interesting to think that in America, even in a more deeply Judeo-Christian time in America, there was a lot of occultism, a lot of seances, a lot of very mystical interest in that kind of things, and dark arts and whatever. And so you had these seances, and you've probably seen the pictures, and I think it's probably in some other scary movies. I don't watch a lot of scary movies, but where the smoke and stuff will come out of their mouths, and a lot of that's been proven to be fake and manufactured and trick photography. Time lapse photography, which isn't that big of a deal nowadays. But back then, how would people know? They couldn't go on YouTube and see how it was made. But one thing that's always interests me is sometimes they would conjure up, or a demon would bring something in to this dimension, or they wouldn't say it's a demon, but I think that there might be something to apports. One thing that interests me about it is, where do the things come from? So, in one of these exorcism, seance, magic, theosophy, the Aleister Crowley type things. So they bring something in that wasn't there, and it's usually something ancient, even for the time period, and it usually, from what I've seen, looks like degraded, like it's been somewhere that wasn't friendly to that type of. Usually it's a coin is what I've seen the most often, and it's kind of corroded and it looks dark, and so what do you think? Does it? I've wondered if this is real. Does it come from another dimension? Like, is there? I do believe that there is. The Bible even talks about this dimension. The Bible talks about when there's armies getting ready to invade Jerusalem, and the prophet says, "Don't worry," and he prays for the eyes of his servant to be open, and he sees chariots of fire all over the place. So there's stuff there. There's in the spiritual realm, there was stuff in that physical realm that was going to affect the physical outcome of what happens. And we all know about, angels and supernatural healings and stuff like that. So do these objects somehow get dragged into this dimension? And there's like a lost and found pocket of these things that are brought out into the physical realm once more? Or are they taken from one particular spot to that spot at that time? I don't know, really what difference it makes, but it's interesting to me. And I fancy myself a connoisseur of obscure sci-fi. So I like to watch a lot of the bottom of the barrel movies, stuff that was on that when I watched Netflix pre-Cuties era. When I would go to the genre sci-fi and go all the way to the bottom, the stuff that I don't remember what that was, but there was some comedy routine that showed like Netflix that boasted all these different movies, and a lot of them weren't ever meant to be seen. So they had like this ad lib, this improv group ready to film the movie as you're watching it if somebody just happened to accidentally click on one of these things. That's where I spent my time on Netflix, finding, and I would sift through these, and most of them were absolute garbage, asylum entertainment type stuff, if you're familiar with that, but every once in a while you find a real gem. And some are more obscure than others. You may have heard of Radius. I thought that was a good one. It's where this man and a woman are together, and if they get separated, if they're far enough apart out of a radius from one another, everybody around them dies. And it had a pretty cool ending. There's one I watched. I don't even know the name of most of these things. There's this guy that was in a prison ran by an artificial intelligence that's breaking down, and it turns out the reason he was put in, or the war or whatever, is already over, and he was forgotten about, and this AI is just breaking down and degrading and going insane. Well, this is pretty good too, but this thing I watched was called The Rift: Dark Side of the Moon. So it's like the sequel to another obscure sci-fi nobody's ever seen. And I've never seen the original either. But the sequel had a really good twist. And if anybody else is, willing to watch something like that, I didn't know going into it and it doesn't tell until the very end. The movie's about the Antichrist. And it's a very interesting thing. And it has to do with portals and apports. Things that come from one place to another, and when they pass through this other dimension, it's that other dimension is the realm of demons. So they come out corrupted. It's not an original theme. I believe that's kind of the what Doom, the game Doom, is about. They try to transport people from one place to another, and in that transport, they go through a dimension for a second, and they try to hold that dimension they go through, and it turns out that dimension's hell, and they unleash hell. I'm not positive, but I think that's, I've read more of the lore than I have played any of the games. There's also Event Horizon. That's a movie I would suggest nobody ever watch. It's horrible. It's just, I watched it when I was younger, and I think it's so demented. I think I still have some PTSD from that movie. But the basic premise is they go faster than light, and it's basically a setup for Warhammer 40K. So they go faster than light, but they're going somewhere in that time, and that place happens to be hell. So I believe that hell is a dimension that's here. It's here right now. Not necessarily hell, but there is a spiritual dimension that are, what the Bible says, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but of powers and principalities and thrones. And we've got all these different things that are here right now that affect our physical world that we can't see. I touched on this a little bit last time, but, sometimes you can see them. Pharmakeia. There's certain things that the Bible says that, towards the end of the era, people will consent not to their fornications, which comes from the Greek word porneia, or that's where we get pornography, and that's, even mainstream people, even after years of from the 60s to now, saying, free love and it's all good and there's no repercussions, and then at least nowadays you've got giants of philosophy saying, there is no that kind of thing without repercussions, right? Like Jordan Peterson says that, and even great minds like Billie Eilish say that. So then you've got murders, which is basically hate. There's a lot of hate going around, especially hate in the name of no hate. There's a lot of 1984 type things going on where whatever it is the exact antithesis of what it actually is, like peace is war is peace, and love is hate, and anti-racism is racism, that kind of thing going on nowadays. Rabbit hole. I just got way off topic here. So if you want to get more in depth, there's a guy named Trey Smith, not the little boy who wears women's clothing that Will Smith is so proud of. It's a guy named Trey Smith. You can look him up, and he does biblical documentary things. I really like this guy. When I first started coming back to Christ, when I was still very much an evolutionist, before I became a creationist, I was one of those people that thought that there was no distinction between the evolutionary timeline and a biblical analogy. Apocryphal. It's apocryphal. I thought that it was I think I'm looking for another word here, but that it's not true. No, I'm looking. It's apocryphal. Yeah. So I would watch this guy. I would watch another guy that would talk about the Anunnaki and would talk about all this technology, pre-flood stuff, and relate the aliens to demons and stuff like that. And he, but it was definitely on a millions of years time scale and everything. And I thought he was pretty cool. And Trey Smith would come on, and I just could not stand the guy. Could not stand the way he looked, kind of hippie-ish, the way he talks, and he shows a lot of stuff and taps on his and now I think it's just awesome. So you should go check him out. And if you hate him to begin with, watch his Theory of Everything video is 3 hours long, and it's great. But there's another one that's 3 parts, and I what is that called? Just go check him out. Trey Smith, yeah. I think a lot of his newer, he does stuff with rock stars that have gotten saved, and a lot of people. He puts a lot of stock in very people that not necessarily are in the new NAR movement, but kind of border on that. And I'm not saying all of, everybody has stuff that's right on the money, and everybody has stuff that they have an emotional attachment to it, and they're invested in it, and it's hard to know whether they're doing it out of the fact that that's just what they came to, or if they're so emotionally involved they want it to be true so much that that's what they put out. But check this guy out, and especially his videos, Entities. And he talks a lot about how when people are on drugs, there's so many, not just drugs, but like I talked about before, sleep paralysis. There's so many similarities between drugs, alien abductions, sleep paralysis, where there's these things that seem to be their modus operandi is the same thing that demons have had from the beginning: to terrify you, to mix your DNA with theirs, the Nephilim, same thing the demons or the aliens are up to these days, to show themselves as the real gods that you should worship. They're higher, they're bringers of knowledge, like Satan brought us the knowledge of good and evil. He helped us out. But so you've got this spiritual world, and what do you think? Can you bring stuff through it? And if you had one of those things, I do think there's things that can attract demons. You start playing with a Ouija board, and you can look at experience after experience. After a while, it's not so fun. It's not a fun game. It gets real after a while, So I don't know. I would. There's some things that I would like to have. I would like to have Nazi Reichmarks from 1944, the worst of the Holocaust. I would like to have that, to remember that, with like a picture of the Holocaust, to remember what's happened in modern history, to remember, to look at it and think of what people were just going on about their business, while Viktor Frankl, the stuff that he wrote about in Man's Search of Meaning, the most inhuman behavior that man has ever bestowed on another man. It's just, that was going on. And in a time where we had become so advanced, we think that's not going to happen anymore. That's Genghis Khan stuff, So what do you think? If I'll give you another chance to, we'll go on about these dimensions and these apports again in another video. But I want to go on to another thing. I talked about Elon Musk and Mars and the crazy stuff that are happening, and I just happened to find this clip. I've seen like the Red Bull commercials with the guys in this jetpack, and he's got a thing connected to him, and it's, he's flying around the water, and yeah, that's cool and everything. But I've seen this thing where the Royal Navy is actually using this stuff. I'm just gonna play a little bit right here. And this is awesome right here. I'm talking, jetpack assaults. We're living in the future right now. And this is cool. And I found this other video. This guy's, that's awesome. I just imagine, machine guns on his, like if you've ever seen The Expanse, the Martian Marines dropping in on a low gravity planet with machine guns in their hands, and that's some pretty crazy stuff. If you haven't, I'm just gonna play that in the background.
Prepare your team for drop.
Yeah. What's going on? Yeah, this is The Expanse is a pretty cool show. I love it. Yeah. That's why I want to go. I want Elon to hurry up and build a city on Mars, and so I can go and join the Martian Marines if I'm good enough. These guys are cool. It also reminds me of like some Warhammer 40k drop Marines. Yeah, that's cool. So technology with the fact is that it was autonomous. It didn't have anything hooked onto it. It's like, we're advancing. The stuff that's you've seen the Boston Dynamics Atlas robot where it's running around and it's got a wire attached to it. Well, now it's not got a wire attached to it, or the dog robot that the military wants to use that carries your ammunition and stuff, your bags, and you push it and it can't be pushed over or slide on ice, And there's technology now that we didn't think about 10 years ago. 3D printing. We can 3D print hydraulic canals for hydraulics and stuff that makes things that would have to be so bulky and hard to manufacture. And we can just 3D print it now. It's cool stuff. And so there's a lot more stuff I wanted to get into, but I said that if I went 11 minutes last time, I was going to go 22 minutes this time, and it's almost over. But maybe next time we'll talk about some of these big people that are rising. I talked about Tom McDonald, how he's not attached to a record label or anything, and he's huge, and he gets to say what he wants to say. And it's like, he wears bulletproof vests and stuff. I don't see this guy being a military guy. I don't see this guy being a politician. And he said a lot of stuff that's like pretty conservative. You could go more libertarian. I'm not much of a libertarian, and I can get into that some other time. I don't want to really talk politics right now. But he's come out of nowhere, and he's rising in an industry that's usually dominated by people that have millionaires, billionaires behind it. $1 billion industries have to elevate these people to that level, and there he is doing it by himself with his girlfriend and doing, So, and I think that we got some pretty crazy times. There's a lot of people telling you these times are no different than any other time. It's just different. But we're talking about stuff on a global level that we've never seen before, and we've seen a lot of that with the COVID stuff, right? A lot of countries coming in and that were separate and everything, and even though they might be enemies of one another, they got in lockstep with certain policies, certain procedures, and it's like, even though countries are at war with each other, we've got the biggest global continuity in things that we've ever seen before. And then I mentioned Jordan Peterson. I mean, this guy is I think the Aristotle of our time, and he's went through a lot of hard stuff too. It's crazy, He's almost died, and I think that not just a lot of people like that. Elon Musk, this billionaire, that richest man that's ever existed, and he's a wild card too. He doesn't act like a billionaire usually does. He doesn't try to get you into thinking into lockstep or working with a particular government. You never know what this guy's going to do. So I think with all this shaking up the waters, and the cream is rising to the top, brother. So that's as much as I'm going to do today. Hope you like it. Subscribe, share it. You like this, I'll keep doing it. Goodbye.